Ignatius, friend of the Saroyans. On November 6, 2025, Paul Ignatius, the 104-year-old former Secretary of the Navy, passed away in Washington, D.C. Born in Glendale, California, Ignatius's grandfather had been one of the first Armenians to purchase land in what would become the Southern California Armenian stronghold. Ignatius served in the Navy during World War II and saw his ship struck by 2 kamikaze attacks, though the sailors managed to save their ship and later returned to battle. Following the war, he worked in various capacities before entering government service in the early 1960s. He served as Assistant Secretary of Defense for Installations and Logistics from December 26, 1964 to October 31, 1967, and then as Secretary of the Navy through 1969 during the height of the Vietnam War. Following his time at the Department of Defense, he was named President of the Washington Post and sat on the board of several businesses and non-governmental agencies, including serving as the President and CEO of the Air Transport Association and on the board of the George C. Marshall Foundation. Ignatius and his family had a long connection with the Saroyan family, beginning with Paul's father, Joseph Joseph B. Ignatius, and William Saroyan's uncle, Aram Saroyan. Later, Paul Ignatius spoke of Aram Saroyan in an interview conducted in 2022. My father's best friend was Aram Saroyan, who was the colorful uncle of the writer William Saroyan, and he came to our house very often. Uncle Aram detailed a trip he took with Joseph Ignatius to Armenia on behalf of the Armenian General Benevolent Union, AGBU, in his book, Meet Uncle Aram. Before I went to Armenia in October 1955, Mr. Alex Manoogian, who had recently been elected president of the Armenian General Benevolent Union, asked me if I were willing to take the chairmanship of a drive throughout the United States and Canada to raise $250,000 for the purpose of introducing the Armenian youth in America to our language, culture, and history. Further, Mr. Manoogian told me at the same time the AGBU was to celebrate the 50th anniversary of that organization in over 25 cities in this country. The campaign was to begin in December of that year and would wind up in the spring of 1956. I told Mr. Manoogian I would give him my answer when I returned from Armenia. Upon my return, I informed Mr. Manoogian that I was willing to accept the job provided Mr. H.B. Ignatius would accompany me throughout the campaign and arrange the banquets in the various cities, for I had recognized Mr. Ignatius's capabilities as an organizer in our drive for Armenian territorial rights in 1946. Mr. Manoogian was glad to accept my condition. The purpose of this campaign was close to my heart. Until now, almost all the financial aid given by the AGBU had been for Armenians in Arab countries. But the new president felt it was time the organization did something for Armenians in America. I heartily concurred. On several occasions, I had assisted the AGBU by raising money for various causes, particularly for repatriation in 1946. So I proceeded with confidence and joy. Immediately, we organized in California and moved to New York, where we established ourselves at the AGBU offices. Our campaign, which lasted 6 months, took us from Boston to San Francisco. We not only spoke at banquets, we also spoke at small groups and obtained their contributions. Our tour was crowned with great success, and we topped our $250,000 goal by $250,000. No effort of such magnitude could be achieved such success without help, and I was grateful for the methodical, patient, and persuasive Joseph Ignatius, whose salutary influence upon me was immeasurable. Others were of great assistance too, and I particularly recall the untiring efforts, the timely suggestions of Mr. Don Danilian. In the end, though, a cause is more important than the individuals who further it, and we are grateful to the multitudes who kept it alive. Joseph is one of the few men who solved problems of establishing internal tranquility in a world of timetables, appointments, and schedules. He never carries a watch. When I asked him, early in our friendship, if the lack of a watch sometimes proved inconvenient and embarrassing, He replied in his measured monotone, "You go here, you go there. No matter where you go, you either sit or stand when you get there. What's the hurry? Why not sit or stand right here?" Before the AGBU campaign, Hosvip and I, as I said earlier, were on a European trip. Our first night on the Queen Mary, I had finished my coffee and dessert. I put down my napkin and stood up. Before I could excuse myself to the other passengers at our table, Ignatius, in a puzzled voice, asked, "Aram, where are you going? This is the ocean." Hosvip always knows where he is. We disembarked at Southampton and proceeded to the train station. Ignatius was unconcerned that we had missed our train to London by a matter of minutes. The delay of a few hours strengthened my belief that he was a sound philosopher. In London, we observed the ravages of war, the grotesque shells of bombed-out buildings, and the endless ration lines of almost motionless humanity. Aram and Hosvip's involvement with the AGBU lasted decades, and the two were especially close with AGBU President Alex Manoogian. Paul Ignatius knew William Saroyan, and also spoke about one of their interactions in the 2022 interview. I knew Saroyan, William Saroyan, the author, and he was an interesting person to be with. My parents gave him a book party celebrating his first book, which is called The Daring Young Man on the Flying Trapeze, and they invited a number of their friends to meet this brilliant young writer. And Willie was uncomfortable with all the people asking him questions. So he came to me. I was maybe 13-year-old at the time. He says, "Is there any place in this house where we can go and read the funny papers?" There was a bedroom off the kitchen, and we went there, and we were reading the comic strips from the newspapers, and my father discovered us there and took Willie back to the party. Ignatius received many honors in his lifetime, including being inducted into the USC Hall of Fame. In 2013, the U.S. Navy named an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer after him, the USS Paul Ignatius, DDG-117. Thank you for listening to From the Collection of Forever Saroyan. I'm Chris Garcia. See you next time.